Hello every pony, that's right, I'm doing yet another My Little Pony video. But Lilla, didn't you upload a My Little Pony art video 2 weeks ago? Yes, I did, and I'm doing another MLP video, this time with Pokemon. After all, who doesn't love a good crossover between some of the greatest shows from the early 2000s? Inspired by True Green 7's video about making teams for celebrities, and to my friends for suggesting fan-made Pokemon teams for fictional characters, here is My Little Pokemon. In this soon-to-be series, I will be creating a team of Pokemon for a bunch of My Little Pony characters based on a series of requirements that I will list shortly. Since this will be a part 1, I will be discussing teams for the main 6 as well as the princesses of Equestria. My next video will hopefully be a part 2 for this one, and feature some of the fan favourites like the CMC, villains, and other notable characters in the My Little Pony universe. For today's video, I have enlisted the help of one of my friends, Ash Era, to help pick Pokemon for the teams of the ponies we know and love. Thanks Ash for helping out on this video, go check him out if you haven't already and show him some love, link to his channel is in the description. With his help, Ash and I decided to create a set of rules for creating Pokemon teams. Please keep in mind these teams are purely for fun, as neither of us have any idea how Pokemon battles work, and I personally only understand the basic rules of the TCG. With that disclaimer out of the way, here are our rules. Standard team of 6 Pokemon per pony, contains a starter Pokemon or evolved form of one and does not have to be a traditional starter. Only the princesses can have legendary Pokemon, and each character will have a Pokemon related to their cutie mark, their pet if applicable, and general traits, aesthetics, habits, and skills that that pony may have. With that, let me introduce you to the world of My Little Pony characters as Pokemon trainers. The first ponies team we will be covering today is that of everybody's favourite animal-loving Pegasus, Fluttershy. A quiet, timid character, I figured a normal and grass-based team would suit her well in representing her usually innocent nature. For Fluttershy's team, we have multiple things to cover per the requirements: her starter, a cutie mark representative, and a few other Pokemon to represent her traits. Beginning with Fluttershy's starter, I have assigned her Score Bunny. Everybody knows Fluttershy's pet bunny Angel. As much as he tends to be an angry ball of fluff, Fluttershy cares deeply for him. And given his importance, I couldn't decide between 2 Pokemon to represent Angel's likeness as a character from the Pokemon universe. But both of these characters seem to fit, and the second bunny to go with Score Bunny is Buneary, brown and cream-coloured rabbit Pokemon that pairs well with Fluttershy's feminine shyness shown more blatantly in the earlier seasons, as well as representing Angel as, well, a bunny. Speaking of Fluttershy's timid nature, her next Pokemon was selected to represent how she would hide herself as a filly, often masking her dislike for Pegasus ways. This grass cat is of the newest generation, picked specifically for its 3rd evolution, Meowscarada. With its fur stylized as a mask, this green cat would represent her hidden attitude, with very present shyness in the earlier seasons. This Pokemon is there to be her guard, protecting her timid nature from less than friendly trainers. Speaking of protector Pokemon, Fluttershy's next Pokemon is one to represent her own personal protector introduced in Season 2, Discord. A Draconiquus, dragon, lion, griffin, lizard, reptile, goat fusion creature that is the god of chaos in Equestria. He finds himself very enamored with Fluttershy and rushes to her defense when told that she and the other main 6 are in trouble.
Ponies in Equestria! Celestia, Luna, Cadence, Shining Armor, Flurry Heart, Twilight and her friends! We need to...
They took Fluttershy?
Yes!
Where?
To represent this ominously caring nature, we have Drampa. This normal dragon Pokemon's attitude matches with Discord's protective nature over her, particularly when observing Drampa's Sun and Moon Pokedex entry. If a child it has made friends with is bullied, Drampa will find the bully's house and burn it to the ground. A rather appropriate depiction of Discord's nature towards our animal-loving pony. And regarding the animals she so dearly loves, the next Pokemon represents Fluttershy's cutie mark. For this, I have chosen Butterfree. I know I could have selected the pink Vivillon as its colours match more to the actual cutie mark, but I chose this butterfly Pokemon not only for that, but its Pokedex entries. Across all the games it is featured in, Butterfree has a few repeating traits: a frequent collector of honey, water resistant and therefore can fly in the rain, and releases toxic dust in distress. Overall, it would be another perfect partner to protect Fluttershy. along with the final Pokemon on this team, Ursaring. As much as I wanted to give Fluttershy a group of small, shy, and cute Pokemon that act just like her, I knew I wanted to reference her tough attitude in times of distress, and the one time Twilight misinterpreted her actions as cruelty. But with that, let's move on to our next Pegasus of the main 6. First performer of the Sonic Rainboom, Wonderbolt legend and element of loyalty, Rainbow Dash is a fierce character determined to protect and care for her friends in her own chaotic way. She strives to be the best of the best at anything she does, and would pick a team perfect for competing in the Pokemon League. To start off, we have her starter. This Pokemon represents Tank, her pet tortoise introduced in Season 2, Episode 7, May the Best Pet Win. Although this Pokemon may be much more active than that of Tank, the green tortoise was selected to be her partner, Turtwig, and although it can't fly, there are plenty of others on Rainbow's team that show off her determined sky racing spirit. Speaking of this flying spirit and representative of her cutie mark, Swablu is the next member of Rainbow Dash's team. This fluffy cloud Pokemon has even made a slight reference to Season 7 Episode 19, where Rainbow Dash gives Rarity a new main do with clouds.
This'll do the trick. Just you wait. You know, this is really quite fetching. Yes! Nailed it! Just not portable.
Reading over Swablu's Pokedex entries, multiple entries state that Swablu has a habit of doing just that and acting like a fluffy hat by sitting upon the head of its trainer. This fluffy flying friend also happens to be the second bird-based Pokemon on Rainbow Dash's team, followed by Pom Pom Oricorio. The yellow critter is a cheerleader that has the perfect Pokedex entry from Ultra Moon to match the supportive friend of Rainbow Dash's Wonderbolt career. When it sees someone looking glum, it will try to cheer them up with a dance. It even reminds me of Fluttershy with its yellow plumage. Onto her weather-related duties as a Pegasus, this next Pokemon on her team may be a little unexpected until I explain with its Pokedex entries, Vaporeon. In Pokemon Gold, Heart Gold, Ultra Moon, and Sword, the Dex entry explains that when its fins begin to vibrate, it is a sign that rain will begin in a few hours. This would be the perfect pairing for her weather-related duties, as it would be able to dictate when would be the best time to release rain clouds from Cloudsdale's weather factory. As mentioned in Ruby Sapphire, Emerald, and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, it has the ability to control water, another helpful trait working in Cloudsdale. The next two Pokemon chosen to finish off Rainbow Dash's team are a pair of very popular Pokemon from the X and Y anime. The first of which I chose as a representative for the Wonderbolt's team and Rainbow Dash's passion and determination to join them. Welcome to the team, Greninja. Much like its bond with Ash Ketchum in the anime, I believe Rainbow Dash would have a similar bond and passion for Pokemon battles, aiming to enter the Kalos League and beyond. The design of Greninja reminded me very much of the Wonderbolt's uniform and felt like the perfect pairing as an alternative buddy choice for Rainbow Dash. The sixth and final Pokemon of this team is none other than the pseudo-legendary Garchomp. This Pokemon was chosen as a way to represent Rainbow Dash's wild, reckless, and chaotic spirit, embodied by a creature much stronger than expected, much like Rainbow being stronger than expected, as she was able to perform a Sonic Rainboom twice in the 9-season show. Overall, this team encompasses her spirit, courage, and determination that matches well if Rainbow were a trainer in the world of Pokemon. As Rainbow Dash's longtime friendly rival in the main 6, Applejack is next in the team assignment. Of course, I first considered her cutie mark and her verse during At the Gala from Season 1 Episode 26, The Best Night Ever.
At the gala, I will sell them all my apple-tastic treats. Hungry ponies, they will buy them. Caramel apples, apple sweets. And I'll earn a lot of money for the apple family.
With that in mind, I decided to choose Appleton to represent her place in the apple family. This Pokemon would also be a helper in the apple cider business. As referred to by multiple Pokedex entries, it creates a sweet nectar, which I imagine would be helpful in creating apple cider and beating Flim and Flam in a Pokemon battle. Perhaps they'd be members of Team Rocket. Another reason I chose this Pokemon rather than a different member of the Applin line was the evolution requirements. To evolve Applin into Appleton, trainers must feed it a sweet apple, and given Applejack lives on sweet apple acres, it's a perfect fit. But you can't make apple cider without planting apples, and who's better at digging holes to plant seeds than the next two Pokemon on Applejack's team, Drillbur and Growlithe. Drillbur would be the perfect partner when it comes to planting apple seeds on sweet apple acres, and even though its Pokemon Shield Dex entry suggests otherwise, it wouldn't cause damage to the more profitable crop on the farm. As for Growlithe, this puppy Pokemon is the perfect representative of Winona, her in-universe pet. Its color scheme also matches Applejack and therefore feels like a very fitting choice for her team. The next Pokemon is yet another fire Pokemon, an Applejack starter, Fennekin. This fox critter's dex entry suggests to me it would be helpful as a member of the apple family household, as it would be useful for baking. From the Omega Ruby dex entry, eating a twig fills it with energy, and its roomy ears give vent to air hotter than 390 degrees Fahrenheit. The last two Pokemon would work wonders on the farm with Applejack along her already capable team. The first is Scyther, a speedy Pokemon with scythes for hands. You know, the farming tool? Very helpful and good to fly after any bats taking over the farm during Season 4 Episode 7, Bats. Along with the final member of this team, Scyther would make a great companion for Applejack. Finally, we have Primeape, a furious creature whose anger rivals Applejack's skills, in which she would be able to wrangle it to fight for her, primarily as a defender of Sweet Apple Acres. On the topic of sweet things, our next trainer is Pinkie Pie. This chaotic party pony loves to make everyone smile and has an excellent talent for baking sweet treats, so let's give her the perfect team for her party throwing and baking skills. First up on the roster is Mr. Mime, the clown to pair with Pinkie's prankster nature. With this barrier power and generally helpful nature, this Pokemon would be the perfect party partner and in a way represents Pinkie's canonical husband, Cheese Sandwich, who we are introduced to in Season 4, Episode 12. And although not added to this team, Mime Jr. would also be a good runner-up for Pinkie to represent her daughter in the show shown in the MLP finale, Lil Cheese. Adding to the perfect team for our fun-loving party pony, we have Drifloon. As the balloon Pokemon, Drifloon would be perfect as a deceptively happy and fun member of Pinkie's team. As she often misinterprets danger, she also misinterprets the Pokédex entry. This hidden ominous energy is also why I chose it for Pinkie's team, to represent the deceptively cheerful nature that is Smile HD. Next is the first shiny Pokemon to feature in this video, Shiny Mareep. This lovable sheep is much like a walking cloud, part of the reason I picked it. Known in My Little Pony is that a large majority of Pegasi are from Cloudsdale, a Pegasus-only city that resides in the clouds. And who was originally a Pegasus in early development? Pinkie Pie. Second to last is the Pokemon I believe most associated with friendship, Sylveon. This transgender icon of the Pokemon world, this beautiful Pokemon can stop any conflict by emitting powerful auras that calm its opponents, much like making them smile, like Pinkie's most iconic song, the Smile Song. And with one shiny after another, Pinkie's starter Pokemon is Shiny Totodile. This sweet guy represents Gummy, her beloved toothless green alligator introduced in Season 1 Episode 15, Feeling Pinkie Keen. This one was an easy pick and the perfect starter of Pinkie's team. Finally, in this lineup is the perfect baking buddy, Miltank. This pink cow Pokemon would be a wonderful addition for Pinkie's team for two reasons. The first is for its use in baking, as the Pokédex describes Miltank's milk to have extremely positive nutritional value, particularly for children. Children such as Pound Cake and Pumpkin Cake, the Pegasus and Unicorn children that Pinkie babysits in Season 2, Episode 13, Baby Cakes. With a Pokemon like Miltank, it fits well into our team for both pink aesthetics and being generally helpful. Another interesting fact is that Miltank can learn the move Double Team via the use of a TM in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And I wonder where we've seen Pinkie double herself in the show.
The miracle! Oh, and there's that voice again. Ah, Pinkie, you have got to stop talking to yourself. Starting now. And into her own reflection she stared, yearning for one whose reflection she shared, and solemnly swear not to be scared at the prospect of being doubly fair.
For the next trainer, we have the elegant designer unicorn Rarity. When considering choices for her team, I wanted to have some interesting contributions to her group, starting with an irregular starter for the first member of her team, Espeon, the psychic evolution of Eevee, her starter. The first and most obvious reason is the color palette is a purple Pokemon, and the general appearance is that of an elegant cat, fitting contribution to her team since she has her cat Opal. Speaking of cat-like Pokemon, the next member of Rarity's team is a Alolan Persian. As much as I would have used the regular Persian for her team, the pearlescent color of this Pokemon and the color of its blue gem match her cutie mark, and it won me over and made it the second member of Rarity's team. Another reason I chose this Pokemon was its Pokédex entry. In Pokemon Sun, it is said that its round face and smooth coat are softer than high-class velvet, and have made this Pokemon very popular in the region of Alola. Much like Persian's elegance, the next Pokemon is exactly described as such and follows the purple trend in Rarity's team, elegant variant of Vivillon. This purple butterfly was actually the first to come to mind when creating her team, given that I play Pokemon Go, and elegant type was the first Vivillon variant I fully evolved in the postcard trading feature. I also find it fitting how Rarity would be assumed to write plenty of letters and orders regarding her boutique, so a Pokemon obtained that way would be fitting for her. Next up in this team for Rarity comes from considering the elegance of purple Vivillon, and what's more appropriate for a classy lady like Rarity than drinking tea. As such, the next Pokemon to join her team is none other than Sinistea. I chose the regular one over the shiny to match the next Pokemon on this team, and picked it specifically to match the color of her cutie mark as well. This anthropomorphic Pokemon to follow is none other than Shiny Gardevoir. Although this one might be rather obvious, this classy Pokemon fits with Rarity quite well in its shiny form, in which the blue and white match with her coat and cutie mark colors. If Rarity was to be a Pokemon trainer in that universe, I believe Gardevoir would be perfect representative for her Pokemon fashion brand, because let's be honest, she would do more than human fashion in the Pokemon world, and as such another Anthro Pokemon used to model the more human end of her fashion would be a great asset to her team. The final member of her team and other fashion ambassador would be the flamboyant Quaquaval. Perhaps Rarity would even use Quaquaval for Pokemon Showcase in the Pokemon Showcase Masterclass Carlos Queen event, given Quaquaval's classification as the dancer Pokemon and that it tends to mesmerize all that see it. A well-picked contribution for Rarity. All in all, Rarity's team consists of elegant Pokemon and an overall perfect team for the future Carlos Queen Pokemon Showcase Masterclass. On to the final member of the main six, Twilight Sparkle. As we're on to the final member of the main six, let me show you the team of Equestria's newest princess. Starting off, Twilight's Pokemon replacement for Spike, Dratini. I chose this one over the evolved form specifically because of how Spike has three main forms in the show. Seasons 1 through 7 as the standard purple and green dragon, but from Season 8 Episode 11 Meltdown he has wings, and in the season finale he is a fully fledged dragon. With this three-stage similarity, I figured this would be most appropriate choice for Twilight's scaly companion and honorary starter. Second to this team is the pet representative of Owlicious, a small creature that only features for a few brief episodes across the entire show. Between my two candidates of Hoot Hoot and Rowlet, I chose Hoot Hoot. Mainly because the choice made to adhere more to Owlicious' color scheme, and a Pokédex entry Twilight would probably adhere to. In the game's Pokemon Crystal, Ultra Sun, and Shield, it hoots at the same time every day, and trainers would use them in place of clocks, something that Twilight would probably do. Another normal type to join Twilight's team is one that I believe would be a key interest in her research beyond the magic of friendship, and instead the power of evolution. Welcome to the team, Eevee. Although I believe an Espeon would suit its place, a regular Eevee feels more fitting, as it also represents the potential that Celestia always saw in Twilight from the moment the Sonic Rainboom happened. As such, researching evolution would be a key part of her team and therefore a welcome addition. As for a Pokemon that represents Twilight herself, I chose the mystical Masmagius. It's purple and carries over the psychic power that Espeon would have represented if I'd chosen it in place of Eevee. and I think that's more than enough reason for Miss Magius to be a part of the team. The next Pokemon is somewhat of a joke addition, but a necessary one nonetheless. Seen in Season 1, Episode 15, Feeling Pinkie Keen, Twilight becomes so enraged at the lack of cooperation between herself and the other members of the main six that she spontaneously sets on fire. Her appearance becomes that of a white coat and fire in place of a mane and tail. As such, the next addition to Twilight's team is none other than Rapidash. And also it's a unicorn, which fits her pretty well. The final Pokemon to add to Twilight's team is the first of the acceptable legendaries that I'm only giving to the princesses. Twilight will only have one, whereas Celestia, Luna, and Cadence will have more. You'll just have to see what I pick for their teams coming up next. As for Twilight's legendary, I did consider Cosmog as the first option, as it's a galaxy full of stars. But its pre-evolution is something to fit more with Celestia and Luna, and I decided against it. Instead, I chose a different Pokemon that I felt was more fitting of the elements of harmony, Xerneas. Aside from the gem colours in its horns being a literal depiction of the actual gems in the physical elements, there is also pretty interesting lore reasons that Xerneas would be perfect for Twilight. According to the Omega Ruby Pokédex entry for Xerneas, it states that it slept for 1,000 years in the form of a tree before its revival. 1,000 years. As a tree. The last time the elements were used prior to the timeline of the show was when Celestia banished Luna to the moon, and the show starts when Twilight goes to Ponyville to see the preparations for the Summer Sun celebration. The anniversary for the 1000th Summer Sun celebration, and when were the elements claimed by Twilight and her friends? What becomes revived? The Tree of Harmony. There's no further explanation needed. On to Twilight's mentor, Princess Celestia, the Princess of the Sun and ruler of Equestria. Running with the sun motif, this team was honestly pretty easy to build. As such, let me begin with the least obvious of the team, Espeon. Yes, it is the same as Rarity, but for a good reason. Espeon's classification is the Sun Pokemon. That's reason enough, but if you need more, you'll see why in Luna's team I allowed a duplicate. Next up is the most simple selection of the entire team, Solrock. It looks like the sun. Celestia's cutie mark is the sun. Need I say more? The follow-up for another sunny Pokemon is the Sunny Castform. As its Pokédex states, it enjoys basking in the sun, and this Pokemon is therefore a rather fitting addition to Celestia's team. Onwards, we have her pet, Philomena the Phoenix, introduced in Season 1, Episode 22, A Bird in the Hoof. Easily enough, I chose Moltres, and I don't think that needs any explanation. Another simple Pokemon in its sunny form is the next Pokemon, Sunny Vivian. The colours obviously match Celestia's cutie mark, as well as the pink in her younger depictions where she has a purely pink mane and tail. Finally, the last member of Celestia's team is Alola's very own Solgaleo. Lions are often associated with the sun, and given it is the sun Pokemon, from Pokemon Sun and Moon, I think we all understand why I chose it. It's perfect symbolism. And following Celestia, it's only right we continue with Luna's team. Her night-themed team is next on the roster, and has some more blatant references to Nightmare Moon as well, but if you guys want me to create a separate team for Nightmare Moon in a future video, please let me know. On to Luna's team, we begin with her polar opposite to Celestia's Espeon, an Umbreon. Given it's the opposite and it's called the Moonlight Pokemon, this one seems like a nice choice to go with. You could even argue that the yellow ring markings on it look like a solar eclipse. Just me? Okay, next Pokemon. The next Pokemon also needs very little explanation, but Luna would obviously have a Lunatone to represent her cutie mark. After all, it's the moon. How much more obvious can I get? Do you see where this team is going? This next one differs from the whole polar opposites with Celestia theme, but is a visually appealing partner for Luna. Shiny Houndoom. I picked this one as its appearance is a good representative of both her as Luna and as Nightmare Moon. After all, her cutie mark as Nightmare Moon is very similar to Houndoom's general body color in the shiny form. Speaking of appearance-based selections, this next Pokemon is none other than Gothitelle. This dark, feminine Pokemon is a perfect representative of Nightmare Moon, but still fitting for Princess Luna as a pony of the night. After all, Gothitelle's Pokédex repeatedly tells about how often it is seen gazing at the stars. Second to last is a Pokemon that Luna would have caught very early in her journey as a Pokemon trainer. Although it doesn't fit the black and blue color scheme that has been established, Clefairy is the perfect Pokemon for Luna. Its Pokedex entries happen to mention how much Clefairy would worship the moon, and they are only found on nights of a full moon. In Season 1 Episode 6 of the Johto League anime, Clefairy and its evolution Clefable are even seen dancing around chanting to worship the moon, much like what would have happened if Nightmare Moon wasn't defeated in Season 1 of My Little Pony. Speaking of the moon, this last Pokemon in the team should come as a surprise to no one, Lunala, the moon Pokemon. Appropriate for her theme of night-related Pokemon, particularly for its Pokedex entries from Pokemon Moon, Sword, and Shield, where the following is rather similar to Nightmare Moon's motivations. Even with these darker entries and their fitting attitude to My Little Pony characters, the final trainer of this video was much more difficult to decide a team for. And that is the team of Princess Cadence, or Princess Miyamori Cadenza, ruler of the Crystal Empire. Her team doesn't exactly have a starter, which is somewhat ironic as she wasn't present in the show until Season 2, Episode 25, A Canterlot Wedding Part 1. Regardless, let me introduce you to her crystal companion, Sableye. This critter is the perfect pick for Cadence for a very obvious reason. Its body has crystals, and as the Pokedex states across multiple entries, that it eats crystals, hence why it has crystal eyes. It is a little concerning given she rules the Crystal Empire, but consider it a reference to Queen Chrysalis. As for other crystal-related Pokemon, the second member of Cadence's team is none other than Diancie. This Pokemon is even referred to by some as the Princess Pokemon, which is a perfect fit for Cadence as a pink-themed princess, and unlike Sableye, it creates gems rather than eats them. Perhaps that's what makes her team work so well. Diverting from the obvious crystal theming and Cadence's team, next we have Florges. I wanted to create a very feminine team that embodied love, and what's better than a Pokemon to represent her wedding bouquet? And with the Pokedex entry from Alpha Sapphire, it has a fitting place among the Crystal Empire. In times long past, governors of castles would invite Florges to create flower gardens to embellish the castle domains. The next Pokemon is probably one that should have come to me a lot more sooner, and, a pretty obvious pick since Cadence's cutie mark is a heart, and here is Luvdisc. As for how this Pokemon would be a part of her team, it would probably join her after marrying Shining Armor, per the Pokemon Scarlet Pokedex entry. Its heart-shaped body makes it popular. In some places, you would give a Luvdisc to someone you love. This next Pokemon is one that I mostly picked for its colors and not much else. Regardless, it is a guardian like Cadence and therefore deserves a place on her team. Welcome, Tapu Lele. After reading upon Tapu Lele's Pokedex entry, I did find it has a similarity with Cadence when it comes to healing. In Sun and Moon, Tapu Lele's scales supposedly have healing properties that cure physical ailments, and who helps with the usually emotional romantic ailments? Cadence. Finally, we have reached the last Pokemon of Team Cadence. This one was also picked for its color palette, but its name was part of a deciding factor. The final Pokemon for this video and last member of Cadence's team is Enamorus, the love-hate Pokemon. Something I discovered about this Pokemon came from the Pokedex, because honestly, when did my facts not come from that during this video? Where in Legends Arceus, it says, according to legend, this Pokemon's love gives rise to the budding of fresh life across Hisui. Perhaps this Pokemon is much like Cadence bringing life to the Crystal Empire, bringing it back to the land of Equestria with Twilight's help. And that is it. Here is every Pokemon team I have created for the main 6 and the Princesses of Equestria. Thank you once again to TrueGreen7 for inspiring this video, and thank you to Ash Era for helping put the teams together. Please go check out both of their channels and give them some love, but before you leave, don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know, would you like a part 2 with some other My Little Pony characters? Once again, if you have any ideas, please leave them in the comments below, and I will see you all next time.